What's up, YouTube? Hazoo Talks. Gonna do something a little different today or tonight. Gonna do a little news segment. The news is very important, and I don't feel like you can per se trust the legacy media all that much. Their narratives are all their news. Their broadcasts are all spinning a pre-existing narrative in whatever direction they want. So today we're gonna launch ours. It's called Nothing to See Here News. Get the pun. So it shouldn't be a real long video, but I just kind of want to cover some things and you could do some of your own research and look into these things. It's just interesting. I'm going to elaborate a little bit as we go through them on what they are. But the first story that's in the news today that is making the rounds is that Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, Ilhan Omar were all kicked off their committees by the new Speaker of the House. And although I'd like to applaud that decision because, break it down, Swalwell dated a Chinese spy. Schiff lied under oath, at least for the last 4 years. Remember he was going to present all this evidence against Trump, and he had evidence of collusion with Russia, and nothing ever came of it. He just kept, telling lie after lie after lie. Ilhan Omar is literally an anti-Semitic terrorist that holds a position in our government. I don't say that lightly. You know what I mean? She's dedicated her. She's dual citizenship, and she has ties to terrorist groups. That's all founded information. So they've been kicked off their committees. They're big time committees too. Like foreign intelligence and I think national security, like different things like that. Eric Swalwell couldn't even get a security clearance in the private sector, and he had a security clearance in our government. And again, was dating a Chinese spy. Didn't know she was a spy. So he says. I'm sure there's a money trail that would lead back to there. But, hey, as we say, nothing to see here. It's all probably spin tactics anyway. I'm sure there's 3 people on the other side that are just as corrupt, and it's just, this is the way the pendulum is swinging today. We're going after the Democrat side. Because they spent the last 4 years going after the Republicans. So, no, 2 wrongs don't make it right. I get that. All right, next one. Biden builds a wall. And before you get too excited, this is not a wall on the border. As a matter of fact, at the news conference yesterday in Mexico, that the president of Mexico spoke for like 40 minutes at length, why everybody, I don't think Biden could stay awake during it. Thanked him literally for not building a wall, any more of the wall on the southern border. Thanked him. If that doesn't tell you what's going on. Where's Biden's wall being built? Around his beach house in Delaware. Oh yeah, but he is also building walls in the Ukraine to try to, keep out Belarus and Russia and whatnot. So that's okay. Those kind of walls. People in those countries and people in his beach house are entitled to safety and security via the security of a actual wall to keep people out, but not at the southern border. As we say, nothing to see here. Next one. This one has me puzzled, actually. This is the third story tonight. This one has me puzzled because it seems as though somebody is a sellout on the Biden administration. I don't know how these things happen, why they were sitting on this information for 2.5 years. But a second round of classified documents that Biden had in his possession, if you will, have just been disclosed by somebody who works for him. So I don't know what this is all about. A sellout, somebody who got probably somebody who got caught doing something, about to lose his job, and the right people from the GOP with some power pressed them and were like, "You're going to do this thing for us now. You're going to give us some information, you know what I mean, to that we can use, or you're going to get prosecuted for this and go to jail. Because that can be the only way that this information just starts leaking now for no reason. But a second round of classified documents that Biden had in his possession. And remember 6 months ago or 4 months ago, Mar-a-Lago, when they were raiding Mar-a-Lago because Trump had classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Although the month before they had done an investigation and accounted for all the stuff that was there and where it was locked up and whether it was safe or not. And Trump did have the power as president to declassify anything. So they may have been declassified. I don't really know. But it was a smoke show, a dog and pony show that for the elections, you know. The elections are over now, so I don't know what the relevance of this one is now. People are like goldfish. They got short memories. No one's going to remember this shit when the presidential election comes back around. But yeah, so a second round of classified documents for Biden. And he just shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know anything about it. So there you go. Nothing to see here. FAA grounds all flights today. Evidently there was a glitch. I'm leaning more towards a hack. They didn't say that. They said it was a corrupted file. But you know, the FAA took ground every flight. That's like 25,000 flights today got grounded on account of a glitch. It's a pretty big deal. But with that said, Pete made an appearance. Rare press conference where he's got things handled, you know, just like he did when he was running the local train or bus service in his when he was the mayor of that 3,000 person population of whatever little city he ran as the mayor. But you know, now he's in charge of all. Now he's in charge of all air travel, train travel, bus travel in America. So it's quite the leap, you know. And you never see him. He's like Kamala Harris. He's evidently when you work for when Biden appoints you something, like you know, especially when they appoint you for a purpose, you know, not because you're qualified, but because they need the diversity. They need the diversity image. It's for the optics, right? You needed a African American Asian woman to be the first vice president. You need a homosexual mayor from Indiana to be your transportation secretary, and you needed a drag queen / cross-dressing thief to guard the nuclear bunkers and the nuclear waste. Jesus, it's real. Nothing to see here. This one's interesting. The GOP is going to launch an investigation into the government. Wow. What do you think they're going to uncover? I mean, that might be the most expensive investigation in the history of mankind, literally. Like, that could go on that could go on for the next 250 years. People would never stop uncovering, like, dirt on people, because government is the most corrupted entity on the planet, ours specifically. You know, so like the GOP, it's gonna be very one-sided, I'm sure, but the GOP plans to investigate the government as a whole. All right, nothing to see here, I guess. Sam Bankman-Fried story. Heard anything in the news about it? Anything on legacy media? They do anything talking about it? You know, a couple $1 billion missing. As far as I can tell, the story's going pretty quiet. I ain't heard anybody talking about it, you know. The whole talk of crypto's gone quiet, and Sam Bankman-Fried has gone quiet. I know he's supposedly in jail. He pled not guilty. But what are they talking about in this on the news now? Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff's story, whatever his crimes were in the early 2000s. That's what they're focused on, you know? How did he do it? How did he get away with it for so long? How many people did he defraud? Like, if you can't sit back and look at those two things that I just said, the few $1 billion that are missing from Sam Bankman-Fried, and Bernie Madoff from 15 years ago. Why is Bernie Madoff a bigger story than this relevant dude who just defrauded $3 billion worth of money out of people? But I guess nothing to see here. All right, this one is a little bit older, but it keeps coming up, and there's a little bit of relevance from things that have been happening this week, specifically this week and last week. But Saskatchewan, Canada. I don't know if it's a province or a city, or I don't know if it's a state. I don't really know how their their things work up there. But no cause of death is now the leading cause of death in that county or country or province, whatever it is. Literally, more people are dying, and on their death certificate, no cause of death founded is their cause of death. And I don't know if it was Canada or if it was America where they coined the word SADS, sudden adult death syndrome. And and then evidently, I keep seeing this too. You're at a higher risk for car accidents if you're unvaccinated. I can't. I searched. I looked. I'm thinking. I have a lot of. I'm very logical, and I'm looking for the correlation, like the correlation of the two. Somehow, not being vaccinated puts you more at risk to be in a car wreck. I'm getting no correlation. I can't. There's nothing there. You're like, this is like trying to do a connected dots, and you finish connecting the dots in order, and there's nothing on the page that makes any kind of sense. Like there's no image or picture. It's just like, it's nothing. And you got to keep looking at it, wondering where was your mistake? What was this really supposed to be? So yeah. I don't know if you saw this. It was pretty tragic, but I did watch the video, and it was also in Canada. It would appear that a news anchor on either last night or the night before his broadcast had a stroke on live TV. Like not an older lady, probably in her 30s, late 30s. Started off talking fine. The segment was about a minute long. Starts off talking fine. Starts to slow her speech. Then begins to slur her words. Then you can see part of her face kind of like becomes expressionless. And finally, her eyes kind of just like go black, and she's staring off into space like she's no longer there. And then they cut away, and I think that she fell. Hopefully somebody caught her because it was cold out where they were. But it's pretty eye-opening, if you will, to watch somebody basically have a stroke on live TV. It's almost as eye-opening as watching somebody have a heart attack and die during a football game on live TV. But as they say, nothing to see here. The medical news came out today and said to quiet everybody down that he had no pre-existing conditions. And this is just a normal but rare occurrence. You got that? A normal but rare occurrence. So the stroke's probably a normal but rare occurrence. I was joking with somebody, and I was talking about, you've heard of the G-spot that ladies have, right? Well, evidently men have an H-spot. It's a spot somewhere on their body that if it's hit with the right pressure, your heart just stops and you die instantly, right? I mean, that's what we all witnessed in real time. I'm really glad that the man made a recovery and got released from the hospital. I hope he makes a full recovery. And as I said before, I hope he doesn't play football anymore. Stupid sport, Stupid sport for someone to risk their life, especially because it's a rare but normal current, event that can happen. So literally that's every football player out there right now is at risk of dying on the field of a heart attack, It's kind of like that. What are they saying now? Because of climate change, there's this new cause of death here in America called wet bulb syndrome. It's where um, it's where the humidity is so high and it's so hot that you can't sweat enough to lower your body temperature, and therefore you just die off. I mean, that's so interesting. It's really such bullshit. But hey, you know how the questions of science, right? Nothing to see here. Last one for tonight, NPR. NPR released an article today that said $165 billion taxpayers paid during 2022 because of climate change. It cost taxpayers, U.S. taxpayers, $165 billion because of climate change. That's a lot of money. It's a little bit more than the $100 billion we gave Ukraine and non-ally because they're at war with our arch nemesis, Russia. Neither one of those countries have threatened us. Although we were involved in the corruption in the government of Ukraine, which, obviously, which is what we're doing there anyway. But yeah, so we're worried about $165 billion that taxpayers paid to because of climate change, here on our soil. Meanwhile, we just sent $100 billion to Ukraine in 2022. And I don't know what that means. So we sent cash, and then we're still giving them weapons and missile systems, and now we're sending them armored carriers. Or is that part of the $100 billion? I'm not really sure, but I know that those armored carriers are like a couple $100 million a piece. So, or whatever. So, NPR, using their platform, spin tactics, to put you in an outrage over the $165 billion that it cost you because the climate's changing. But, make sure you put your flag out there about you support Ukraine and the $100 billion in taxpayer money that we sent them to fund a war that we're not involved in, that we should have nothing to do with. No outrage, though. Not allowed to have an outrage for that. So, all right, YouTube. As I said, it won't be too long today. This was Hazu Talks. Like and subscribe. Please share it with all your friends and family. If you've got anything to say, counter to what I'm talking about, let me know. Happy to discuss it. And that's it. Have a good night.